Media Melanie Talks TV. I'm Melanie, and today I'm back to talk about Severance on Apple TV+. Episode 5, The Trojan's Horse, came on the heels of Woe's Hollow, which was a complete snowy debacle, and I don't know if any of us knew what to expect coming into this next episode, but it was nice to see more of Mark's reintegration process, whatever happened with Irving, and the fact that his innie is now dead, and he's got something going on in the outside world, and did have some contact with Bert. Irving, love that. Helena being her evil self in the outside world, and then we got Helly back down with our innies in MDR with Dylan and Mark S. But what really got my gears turning to generate this theory video was actually a single line that Drummond gave when he was meeting with Milchek. He was talking about Cold Harbor. Of course, that's the project that Mark S. is working on, and 85% complete, so they are nearing the finish line now. But Drummond calls Cold Harbor one of the greatest moments in the history of the planet for when it is completed. But what if there's more meaning to that? And I say this because we got a little peek, a little bit of an Easter egg, I guess, the Rolodex on Mark S.'s computer. It scrolls through a number of different cities, but the one that caught my attention was Chicxulub, which was essentially an extinction level event on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. So could Drummond be talking about this symbolic type of extinction that's essentially going to reshape humanity as a whole, as it did with this meteor that hit the Earth and essentially hit a reset? Is Lumon here to put an end to the normal human race and usher in a whole new life with their technology of the severance procedure? Is this a metaphor? Could Cold Harbor be clearing the way for a new form of humanity under Lumon's control? Lumon's procedure represents a very dangerous and disruptive event, and it has irreversible consequences, much like this devastating asteroid. Okay, so 66 million years ago, back in the dinosaur days, a giant asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula, and it is now called the Chicxulub crater. The impact essentially made the dinosaurs go extinct, and it did usher in a new era of life on the planet. But the asteroid actually left a signature mark, a thin layer of iridium. What is iridium, you ask? It is a very rare metal, and it's more commonly found in asteroids than on Earth. And interestingly, iridium is tough, unyielding, and mysterious, much like the mysterious and important work our innies are doing here at Lumon. But something really interesting is that it was first successfully melted in 1860. Why is that significant? Well, Lumon was founded in 1865. Could there be a correlation between the melting of the element and the formation of Lumon? Could this rare metal be a part of whatever technology that they've been developing since the beginning of time? And could iridium be a part of the severance chip itself? The iridium that was left on Earth marks a literal boundary in the sand between two periods on Earth. And the severance chip acts as a defining layer between the innie and the outie life. I'm seeing some parallels already. In my research, I also learned that iridium is incredibly hard, corrosion resistant, and one of the densest materials on Earth. Could the melting of this element have ushered in the existence of Lumon for using it in whatever they are manufacturing? Also, side note, I don't know what's up with the dentist guy at the beginning and all the dental tools, but I don't know, maybe there could even be some sort of correlation between the iridium and its use in the manufacturing of these dental tools that we saw in this episode. It's funny because I was going to do my theory video on who is the mysterious guy pushing the dental cart, but I think I need a little more information before I do that, so I opted to focus on Chicxulub instead. However, there could still be some sort of connection if iridium is actually used in the manufacturing of some of Lumon's tools, implements, chips, whatever. From what I read, iridium is used in very small ways in our everyday life, but it's very important. It helps in medical equipment like pacemakers. Pacemakers? Seems like if we're using it in pacemakers and medical equipment, it would be a perfect fit to be used in dental implements. Iridium also plays a role in scientific instruments and space technology because it can withstand extreme conditions without breaking down. Despite its rarity, iridium quietly supports many technologies we rely on without us even noticing. Is it coincidental that they are talking about Chicxulub, which is this extinction level event, which yielded the discovery of iridium? I don't think it's coincidental at all, and I would not be surprised if iridium is in fact used in the dental equipment we saw in the same episode with this mention of Chicxulub. What does that mean? I'm not exactly sure, but perhaps there are some dots that are starting to connect. If nothing else, again, there are some thematic parallels, at least I think we can see here. Chicxulub doesn't just stop at this extinction level event that took out the dinosaurs and ushered in this new wave of humanity. There is also a short story called Chicxulub. It is by T.C. Boyle, and essentially it's this haunting meditation on the fragility of life in general. Boyle essentially compares the unpredictability in life to the asteroid impact itself, showing how sudden events can shatter our lives without warning, whether that is something that I will explain regarding the short story, or whether that is something that literally ends the existence of an entire species on Earth. But essentially, this severance procedure does the same thing. An ordinary person gets completely divided, and their sense of self is forever fractured. The story starts with parents getting a late-night phone call that their daughter was actually hit by a car while crossing the street, so they rush to the hospital to get there. The entire time, the father is obviously unraveling. He's fraught with worry about what's going to happen when he ends up seeing his daughter at the hospital and if she's in fact okay or not. And he likens this situation to the Chicxulub catastrophe. It just came out of nowhere and shattered the entire Earth, much like this event could shatter their family dynamic and his whole life. There's this big internal monologue. They're waiting in the hospital for some kind of news as to, what's the status of their daughter who got hit by this car. The tension keeps on building, but eventually they actually learn that it wasn't their daughter that got hit by a car. As it turns out, their daughter Maddie is actually at home sleeping safely. Meanwhile, her parents are literally at the hospital thinking that she died. And they, of course, have this profound sense of relief, but at the same time realize, oh no, there's another set of parents who are going to be in here grieving and going through the same situation. And while, of course, they're relieved and very lucky that their daughter's okay, knowing that somebody else's life is going to be shattered isn't an easy thing to live with either. But of course, knowing that you can head home and still see your daughter is kind of a big deal. So there's this big feeling of life-altering events, how life can change and snap in an instant, the fact that devastation can strike anywhere at any time. But on a bigger picture level, if we're talking about a short story that talks about someone going to the hospital to identify a loved one who was hit by a car, is there a parallel to Mark and Gemma? Is this potentially laying the groundwork for what happened with Gemma? Was Mark called to the hospital or the scene or whatever as a hoax and identified this burned body that maybe he thought was Gemma but was not, and it's a completely different person? I don't think it's coincidental that they introduced Chicxulub because, yes, it could mean one of two things, or it could mean all of them. It can relate to the extinction level event. It can relate to this short story, which is tied into the extinction level event. But either way, Mark and Gemma's marriage was extinct as this tragedy struck. And whether or not it was actually Gemma's body or not, Mark's sense of self has been completely fractured. He is part of this new era that Lumon is going to be ushering in. And even thinking more about extinction, I mean, even in this episode itself, Irv B's Innie is extinct. He died. They had a funeral for him. And really, for people who undergo the severance procedure, it is on some level some kind of extinction event because this is fracturing your sense of self, dividing it into you're an innie and you're an outie. You will never again be the self that you knew. That initial sense of self, that one person without all of this duality will never exist again. So really, like Cold Harbor could potentially change the entire trajectory of the human race and usher in whatever Lumon is trying to do to control humanity. There's also a really big sense of loss and extinction of life pre-severance. So it's almost like right now there's BC and AD, right? In this world, is it going to be BS and AS before severance and after severance? BS would actually be quite fitting, just the linguistics of the show and how it works. It would be a funny nod to the fact that it's complete bullshit, that some people think this is disrupting the entire world and sense of humanity, whereas others think this is actually going to change the world in a positive way. Of course, those people are Lumon and they are evil, so And then also, let's just talk about the visuals of it all. I'm going to put up on the screen a picture of Keir overlooking Dieter-Egan National Forest. I'm going to put up a picture of the Chicxulub crater, and I'm going to put up a picture of Lumon. Do we see any visual similarities to the fact that Lumon looks like it could be a crater? This is going to be the extinction of humanity as we know it because of Lumon. And also, I'm not saying that Dieter-Egan overlooking this water and land looks exactly like the Chicxulub crater area, but there's something about the positioning of the water and the land that makes me think that there could be some strange juxtaposition of this idea of Chicxulub tying into whatever Lumon is doing. And again, I don't think it's a coincidence that Chicxulub yielded the discovery of iridium, which was first melted in 1860, just 5 years before Lumon was founded, and the fact that it is used in scientific and medical equipment. Whew! All right, well, that was a lot, but I'm kind of excited to explore a little bit more about this symbolism and whether or not it is just that, if it is just a figurative way to look at the principle of severance, the duality and extinction of the original person and the division into an innie and an outie, similar to how this mass extinction event made an entire species go extinct and then ushered in this new wave of human life. I really think there could be something to this, and maybe I'm missing something. And if I did, and you know more about either of these, the short story, which I did not read, of course, I did a lot of research today to formulate this video, but I wanted to make sure I at least presented some reasonable facts and evidence that yes, I do think this Chicxulub, this iridium, the short story, they are all tied in together, and it is no coincidence either that Drummond talked about this being one of the greatest things in the history of the planet, especially given that this extinction event was a great thing in that it ushered in more humanity. But it's also alarming thinking that Lumon's view is that human extinction is a really great thing and what they're doing is in fact superior to the way that humans have been existing on this earth ever since the dinosaurs did become extinct. I would love to know what you think about this theory. Do you think I am way out there and grasping at straws, or do you think there can be a connection, whether it is figurative, whether it is literal? Perhaps there is some sort of truth here telling us what happened with Mark and Gemma. We had Mark seeing Gemma's face for the first time at the end of this episode as an outie. The reintegration is starting to sneak in. I cannot wait to see what they give us next week. So, please be sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and definitely head down there in the comments and let me know what you think. I really appreciate you tuning in. I'll be back again next week with another Severance Theory video. But until then, happy watching, everybody. Media Melanie, clicking off.